Step 1. Draw your animal. Draw your animal large into the side of your paper, sort of like the animal is peeking around the corner. You want to draw as many details as possible. You want to draw any difference in shadows or highlights that you see with a simple line. This will help with your coloring later. Remember, draw light. Step 2. The background drawing. Create a background scene. You have the option to use another photograph of scenery other than the background behind your original reference photo. Make sure that you are paying attention to the proportions of your cow or animal compared to the background. As items move further away, they're going to get smaller to the eye. You want to draw as many of the details that stand out to you in your reference photo. This will help with coloring and or drawing with line later. Step 3. The border. Draw a 2-inch border around the edge of the paper. Do not draw the line over your animal. To draw this 2-inch border, you're going to use a ruler and you're going to measure from 2 different spots along the edge of the paper. This is going to ensure that your line is parallel with the edge of your paper. Once you mark those 2-inch points, you're then going to connect those dots with a straight line using your ruler. Continue this around all 4 edges of your paper. Step 4. Color animal. Color the animal with as much detail as possible. Use your colored pencil techniques. I like to start out my color pencil drawings with a base layer of the color that I see as the undertone in my reference photo. In this case, mine is kind of a peachy orange. Now for the real coloring of your animal. Make sure you are looking at your reference photo to identify the undertones and shades that you see. I saw more of an orange on his back, so I grabbed an orange first, and then I go in with darker shadows and mark out where those are going to go. The shadows and highlights are really important in your drawing. This is what's going to take it from a flat 2D piece to a 3-dimensional animal. The direction that you are coloring is very, very important. Especially on an animal, think about the direction that the fur grows, usually from the top down. That is the direction you should be coloring. This is what's going to make it look real. If you've paid attention so far, you've noticed that I have had several different colors in my hand at one time. This is because I'm using different layerings of different colors and using what is called the burnishing effect. The more layers you add, the more it's going to fill up your paper and take up all that white space that is left. You don't want any white left showing through your animal unless it is a highlight. After drawing the shadow lines in the wrinkles of this cow, now I'm going back with a lighter color to blend some of them together so it's not so harsh of a line. Remember, shadows are not usually harsh unless it's turning a corner. Be careful when working with darker colors. You don't want to start off too dark because you cannot take it away. You can always build up, just like the layering technique we talked about, to making it darker later. When I'm working with black, I always like to include another color with it so as not to dull out my picture. In this case on the nose, I chose to use a light blue with my black. Now I'm going to go through and use the same steps again to finish out the face of the cow. The direction you are coloring is extremely important on the face. This is where you can see the direction in the hair change, depending on the type of animal. Here in the center of my cow's head is where the fur begins to spiral, starting at the center of the forehead. This is important for my coloring. Look at how important the highlights and shadows are. Shadows are what make the objects look set into the picture and move back. The highlights are what make the objects look like they're pulled forward and pushing away from the picture. This is how you get a three-dimensional object or person. Step 5. Color background. Choose to color either the inside or the outside of your box. Make sure to use your color pencil techniques as well. Because I want the sky to appear smooth, I'm going to use the burnishing technique. That means I'm going to use multiple different shades and have lots of layers to make it as smooth as possible. I'm going to use white to help blend all the shades together. For the grass, I'll be using a similar technique to the one I used on the cow, starting with a base layer and building up layers from there. Make sure to add the important details that you see, even far away in the background. For the texture up close, I'm using the directional lines again so I can have the detail of the grass. For the texture of the asphalt driveway, I'm going to use the scumbling technique. I'm first starting with a base coat very lightly of my black, and then I'm going to go over and darken it using that scumbling technique. Details are so important at the front. Even on a tiny little piece like this barn fencing, I'm still going to try and include highlights and shadows. This is going to help my project look real. Step 6. Sharpie the background. Trace the uncolored background details with a thin Sharpie. Remember to use shading techniques such as hatching or stippling. Feel free to add more details if you feel it is too plain. Remember that when shading with lines, the closer the lines are together, the darker, and the further apart the lines are, the lighter it seems. For the dirt in front of the barn, I decided to use the doodling technique. Refer back to your notes for help. To represent the grass with lines, I'm just going to use the directional lines similar to what we use for the color pencils. The direction matters. To represent the asphalt, I'm just going to make tiny little marks or dots. Remember, you don't need to apply a lot of pressure to do this. Don't ruin the end of your marker. When it comes to the fencing, I'm not going to only outline, but I'm also going to add a few lines, such as hatching, to show the shadows that would be on the right side of every pole. I'm going to finish out the background with a few extra details to add more depth and dimension to my overall picture. The final step in this project is to carefully outline the box that we have going around our paper, dividing the outside color from the inside black and white picture. In this video, I used a thin Sharpie, but I recommend you use a normal, thicker Sharpie.